Hey everybody, welcome back. This is a special crossover episode between Tasty Trails Travel Pod and Finding Korea. For podcast listeners that don't know, Finding Korea is my YouTube-only series where I'm working through my own return back to Korea, which is part personal reflection and part conversations with people who know different corners and aspects of Korean life and culture. For Finding Korea listeners, if you don't know, Tasty Trails Travel Pod is a podcast that I've had for almost 2.5 years, which I can't even believe, and that explores the world through food. Today is a perfect intersection of the two because we're talking about soju and Korean drinking culture. I had an awesome conversation with Irene Yoo, who is the chef and co-owner of Orion Bar in Brooklyn and the author of Soju Party, How to Drink and Eat Like a Korean. Before I dive in, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel called Where We Find Home. And under that umbrella, you'll find all the shows plus my travel videos so you don't miss anything. All right, well, let's go. Hey, Irene, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So can you start off by telling everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
My name is Irene Yoo. I am based in Brooklyn, New York. I am the chef and co-owner of Orion Bar here in Brooklyn. I am also the author of the cookbook Soju Party, How to Drink and Eat Like a Korean. I'm also a freelance content creator and writer and recipe developer. So yeah, I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. So, what brought you to soju? Is it just like interest? Do you have a personal connection, or kind of what kind of got you into it in the first place?
It's funny because soju for me, like growing up, was something that seemed really just not a big thing. Like my parents were not drinkers whatsoever, but a lot of my uncles were. So growing up, they were always drinking when we went out for lunch.
So, you're like a
In
first generation.
Yeah, so my
Okay.
parents are Korean immigrants and I'm a first generation Korean American. But we went to Korea every summer growing up, so I have a lot of interaction with my grandparents and my extended family. And so my Korean uncles were big drinkers. And yeah, they were very like casual drinkers, very dedicated drinkers. And in Korean culture, it's very much like you drink no matter what. There's less of like a sort of like disparity between like, oh, we're going out to the bar to drink, no kids allowed, versus like, oh, we're just like out hanging out with the family. We're gonna order a couple bottles of soju. So I think I was like indoctrinated into the culture very early on. But it's something I think my interest in sharing about it really sparked after a specific night hanging out with my cousins. So I'd heard about this thing called like a soju tornado, and I was like, "Oh my God, can you teach me the soju tornado?" And my cousin, who's my age, he was like, "Why on earth would you want to know that? That's so old school. It's so boomer." But I will teach you. And I like took a video of it, and I was like, "I must master this." And I was like sharing my journey about doing this on social media. So that kind of sparked just sort of this interest and journey of being like, why do like Koreans drink the way they do? What is soju culture? Why do we do this? Yeah, so then that kind of started everything.
So, did you note kind of the differences like between Korean drinking culture and like US drinking culture? Is that something you kind of looking back on you notice the differences, or like as it was happening, were you able to understand, oh, this is kind of one thing and this is a different thing?
hmm I will say, like, I, like my uncles, unlike my parents, have always been a big drinker. Like, I drank a lot in college. I drank a lot since I moved to New York. So I was very much a student and then, like, later, I guess, like, an expert in, like, American style drinking. Whether that was, like, beers, cocktails, different parts of American style drinking culture. And I think in comparison, Korean style drinking is much simpler because we have so much fewer alcohol touch points. So I saw like the difference, and I think it was only a little bit more like in the past like 5, 10 years that I started to explore like what is Korean drinking in relation to American drinking, and also like what could the overlap of the two be. So, like for background, I actually more started in food. So obviously, like this book I wrote is about soju and drinking, but actually most of my like background is like I'm a chef and I've been doing these food pop-ups, and so I've been exploring the intersectionality of Korean food and different cultures, whether that's American or other types of cultural cuisines, for a long time. And I think that really helped to give me perspective on the Korean food and the Korean food culture that I grew up with. So I think I kind of applied the same sort of thing to Korean drinking culture. Like, why do we do the things we do? Why are, for example, like soju bottles green? Like, why has the alcohol percentage changed? Why do we do the things that we do? And how is that different than like how other cultures are drinking? So I feel like it kind of came from there, but I will say that I'm an adamant fan of both styles. Whenever I go to Korea and I do like soju and like Korean drinking, and it's so fun and like immersive, and then I come back and I cannot drink the way I do in Korea as I do here. I forget that like the alcohol percentage of soju is so different than like whiskey, so I can't be like doing like 20 shots of soju in the same like conversion rate of whiskey, for example. Here will die. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
we don't want that.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think it's great you kind of saw that gap because I know sometimes when you're in it, it's just like so normal that it's hard to see like, oh, this is something that other people would be interested in. I mean, that's why I do all of this is because I love just hearing about those differences, things that I never would have thought about, learned about, or anything. And so kind of noticing that gap and then also with the fusion as well, kind of also making it easier to understand and everything. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And so I want to kind of dial it back and go very basic. We've got people from everywhere, and I also, don't know very much about it. So kind of going back to the basics, like what is soju? Can we
Absolutely. Soju is just a clear, neutral spirit. Most people are familiar with what I call just green bottle soju. It's a very commercialized, manufactured soju that's really just a grain alcohol that's mixed with different flavorings and additives to create different styles, I would say. But at the heart, like unless you're like really doing a taste comparison, there's not a lot of difference between different manufacturers and different products other than like soju versus like flavored soju. So here in America, flavored soju I think is like really like popping off lately. I think in Korea it is a bit more if you're starting to drink. I would say like the connotation is a little bit more like you're drinking flavored soju if you're learning how to drink in the same way in America you drink like peach schnapps or, you know, peppermint vodka because you're
Yeah.
like alcohol is very unpalatable. But I would say like most people who drink in Korea are drinking just like regular soju. Whereas here, I would say a lot of people, it's really interesting because like even since writing this book and then now I kind of see the connotation around flavor soju changing because I think people are associating it a little bit more with like a ready to drink cocktail, ready to drink alcohol, like because it's flavored, it's very like easy to drink as an alcohol. But soju originally and classically is a traditionally distilled alcohol. It used to just be distilled with rice, nuruk, and water. And then after the Japanese occupation and the Korean War, it became really commercialized and manufactured. Resources were very tight, so it kind of became the green bottle soju that we know today. That's like the very short story of it. In my book, I go a lot more into detail of like why exactly that happened. But there is a return to a traditionally distilled soju, so you can find that at a little bit more of like a premium price point, a little bit more of like small batch producers are sort of returning to soju as it used to be. But yeah, I mean, I think there's space for like both sojus to exist, and they do kind of different things nowadays, but it is kind of confusing for people who are maybe like approaching soju for the first time.
And is there any sort of like stigma, like if you're out and drinking a flavored soju versus like, oh, I don't know, like I feel like sometimes in the States, and maybe that's going away, but there's sort of this kind of, I don't know if it's like toxic masculinity kind of thing where it's like, oh, you must drink this or otherwise you're being a baby or whatever. Must drink it this way and sugar or flavors or whatever. Is there any sort of that, or am I just kind of bringing that that into
No,
it?
I 100% hear that, and I will say I think I came a little bit more from that perspective. When we opened Orion Bar, I was like, no flavored soju, absolutely not. But like people kept asking for it, and then also even the flavored soju like landscape has changed a lot. When I first started drinking flavored soju, I was like, this stuff tastes like cough syrup. It's so artificial. It's not palatable. Like, why would I drink this instead of like anything else? Or even just like if you can't like just mix it with like soda or beer or like something else. But like they're getting a lot better with like the flavor science. So like recently, there's like a melon flavored Jinro soju, which I love, am obsessed with. So I mean it's getting better, and I think like I'm seeing now that there is like sort of a time and a place for it.
In this is a very random question, but I know especially now there's also a lot of like in coffee where it's a bunch of like mixed flavors and stuff. Are you seeing any like very, like new flavors, like pumpkin spice soju or anything like that? Or they kind of stay to like, like a fruit or that kind of thing?
Melon is like the new one that has come out in the past year. There was also like a lemon flavored one, which was new prior to that. There's a company called Sunari that like really specializes in flavored soju. They do a ton of different types of flavors like lychee or
Oh, yum.
strawberry. And then like it is interesting because like soju is a really like it's inherently a very like flavorless alcohol. So there's no way to describe what it tastes like as, similar to like trying to describe to someone the taste of vodka. It's inherently like doesn't taste like anything, which I think is what inherently allows it to take on a lot of different flavors. So, flavored soju aside, one of the things that I explored a lot in Soju Party, my book, is this concept of danggeumju. So, higher proof soju is made to allow you to infuse it with different um, flavors or like so for example, if you've ever seen like a hanok, like an old school Korean house, or maybe like on TV or K-drama, or you've gone to your grandfather's house, or you've gone to like an old school restaurant, you see those jars of like alcohol with like the ginseng in it, or like
Mhm.
green plum, or just like these weird like roots and barks, and you're like, what is that? And will I die if I drink that? Like that sort of thing. That is all based around just like infusing soju with different, usually like medicinal herbs, but it can also just be any fruit too. So that's like a really old school way of drinking soju that I kind of was like, wait, this is like really similar to like just like cocktail culture. Like so much of cocktail making is like infusing, let's say like bacon fat washing whiskey or infusing like a vodka with like Parmesan cheese or like whatever. And so you can impart a lot of flavor into an alcohol by putting it into the alcohol and letting it sit for however long. So yeah, I think that's like in my book I have a recipe for fruit infused soju because I'm like I don't really love like the fruit flavored soju as much, but I get it. Like I would also like to have like strawberry flavored soju, but why not just put strawberries in soju and make something a little bit more like interesting than that? Or like a really, I think, great use case for it is like at the bar. And in my book, I have a recipe for samgyetang soju. So samgyetang is a Korean ginseng chicken soup that it's like they take the whole chicken, they infuse it, they stuff it with like these like oriental herbs and like glutinous rice, and then they boil it and it's like really healing. But I was like, they sell those like herbs by the pack, like for $5-10 at the supermarket. So I was like, well, this is like the perfect amount to like put in a bottle of soju and see what happens. And it was actually really, really good. It kind of smells and tastes like your grandfather's room in like a really nostalgic way. It also feels like maybe it's good for you, even though it's alcohol. And so I think that's kind of like the whole point. So yeah, I think like it is really like kind of fun to explore different flavors, whether that's like company manufactured fruit flavors or making your own at home.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. And so how are we drinking soju? You order a bottle, is it something you're drinking with dinner? Is it strictly like a drink you drink at a bar? When are we ordering it? And then once we order it, what are we doing?
So generally you order soju by the bottle. You're usually sharing it with some friends. Order by the bottle, you get a shot glass per person. Generally you pour for each other and there's like a whole like kind of ritual and hierarchy around that that is dependent on either age or your relative hierarchy to them. Like specifically if you're like coworkers with this person. You pour for each other and you usually drink it by the full shot or the half shot. And the soju glasses are also a little bit different than American style bar glasses, shot glasses, because soju glasses are 2 ounces and
Oh,
then American shot glasses are 1.5 ounces. And the difference here is that soju usually clocks in around like 12 to like 20% alcohol. So it's about the ABV of wine. So if you're doing a shot of wine, it's not that much alcohol versus doing a shot of whiskey. So you can do a little bit more like at a time. And then you can often pair that with beer. You always have to eat with it. The whole culture of anju or like eating around alcohol is imperative. It's like a non-negotiable. You are almost never going to a bar and just ordering alcohol without even like at least having like peanuts or bar nuts like next to it.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that because I think that's really interesting. So okay, so you said you're taking a shot, like you're not sipping it. There's never a situation where you're sipping
No, really. I mean,
it.
unless
Okay.
you're like, I mean, like, I think so. Like, I tell my friends who are like not big drinkers, the like it's very again communal. So you're like, cheers, let's drink, and then people are constantly cheersing, constantly like, let's drink, let's drink, let's drink. I think a great way to get around that is to to sip it instead of
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
taking shots. No, like I think sometimes people will be like, oh, you didn't finish your glass, or like, oh, you didn't do that like half shot. But I think a really good way to get around it is just like just do little sips and be like, oh, sorry, my glass is still full. But yeah, it's not like a mezcal or like a whiskey where you're not drinking it to be like, I'm savoring the flavor. You're mostly like Koreans are drinking it to get drunk.
Okay, got it. And then I feel like I've seen like at Korean restaurants that you can get it like hot or cold. Is that correct?
No, I think
Okay.
that's more of a Japanese sake thing. You always
Okay.
get it cold or
Got
refrigerated.
it.
There is a small, very underlying subsection, which I only saw in like a K-drama, which is they will get warm room temperature soju, but the connotation there was that they were crazy drinkers, like they were crazy people. So it's kind of like
Okay.
drinking in like the um bar world. We have like a punishment we do when we like play games where you have to do like a shot of like warm gin, and it's like it's not
Oh,
tasty. Yeah, so it's like
no.
similar connotation.
No,
You
no,
can
no.
drink
Okay.
it really. You can drink. Yeah, I don't. You want to be drinking hot soju unless
Okay.
you
Okay. That makes sense.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the Korean restaurants, like in the States or abroad, will sometimes be fusions, just I think to be to have some stuff that local people know. So they must have had like some Japanese sake on there, but that makes sense. Okay, so getting back to Anju, let's talk more about that because I mean, A, it's just plain smart, like that makes sense. Doesn't matter what food you're eating. Are there particular foods that are, like in the States, there's like bar foods, and the foods that you're eating, like at the Super Bowl, is like, very specific, or I don't know. there's a wide range, but you're not
Absolutely.
having like a pasta carbonara like at the bar with your beer kind of thing.
That's funny because one of the anju that we serve at our bar is a is a
No
carbonara.
way.
It's a kimchi carbonara.
Oh,
I don't know.
yum.
I just feel like pasta makes for really good drunk food. So,
I mean, you're
I'm
right.
a
You're
fan.
right.
In, I would say, so yeah, the category of like Koreans love drinking so much and also food so much as an entire category for food called anju, which is for food that you pair with alcohol. There is also separately an entire category of food dedicated to hangovers, which is called haejang. Um,
Oh.
so anju truly though is like anything you eat with alcohol. So there is some
Oh.
rules, but it's not like but like everyone has their own thing. It's as simple as like you went to the convenience store and you got a bag of chips or a bag of like crackers or snacks or something. And if that's what you're like munching on while you're drinking some soju, that 100% counts as an anju. Like a classic example of that is just getting like a bag of raw instant ramen and like breaking it up and like sprinkling the powder inside. Like that's a really classic drinking snack. There's a little bit more of like ritualistic pairings when it comes to makgeolli, which is a Korean kind of rice wine that's fermented. It's sort of the predecessor to soju, a little bit more like a farmer's wine, very like milky, unfiltered rice wine. So that is like actually Korea's oldest alcohol, and there's a lot of pairings for that since it's kind of creamy and yogurty. It pairs really well with fried foods like chon and makgeolli is a really classic pairing. And also like boiled pork, or that's like a little bit more like old school Korean. With soju, classically, it's like Korean barbecue, like samgyeopsal, grilled pork belly goes really well. Anything sort of spicy, also pairs really well because it has that sort of like clean, neutral taste. One of my favorite things is 조개탕, which is like a spicy clam broth. So it's like clams that are cooked with 청양고추, which is our Korean like spicy pepper, and just that broth is like really briny and spicy, and it just kind of cuts that like alcoholness really well. And then there's also an entire subsection of anju to pair with beer. So classically, fried chicken and beer go really well together. Really, any Western food like pizza and beer, anything that you might think of that you just classically goes with beer is also like really common in Korea.
And would you say that soju is more I don't want to say representative, but more common than beer in Korean drinking culture? Like, do you think soju is like the drink, I guess, of Korean drinking
Absolutely.
culture? Or-
Yeah. I mean, beer really only entered the picture in the it was like the 80s, I would say.
Oh,
And very much a Western influence. Like it was very much, I mean, there was like some beer that was like brought in through Hofs, or Hofbrause,
okay.
very German style. So you could go to Korean hops and have very like German European style beers. 'Cause not everything is influenced by American culture. Um, and then what? No, I mean like I say that as like an American. I was like, oh, what's a Hoff? That's a word I've never heard of. And they're like, oh, Hoff like German. And I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense that
Yeah.
America is the center of the universe. Um, but so I think it really came from there. But then like both Japanese style beers and Korean style beers come from kind of a similar um, origin, which is very light, very rice based beers that are easy to pair with food. So that really gained popularity in the 80s, both as Western culture was infiltrating Korea, and then also just like in like tandem with like sports culture and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
But I would say soju, yeah, is absolutely the most representative of like Korean style drinking. It's where you see the most like ritualistic style drinking too. I think beer, and other types of alcohol you're drinking, it's like a little less like you have to like follow the rules. For the soju, like anytime you see a Korean person like pouring a bottle of soju, immediately they're like hand on the elbow and like pouring style and like turning to drink it and that sort of thing. Like it's very like associated with soju.
Yeah, so what are some of the rituals involved in soju?
Hmm.
That is it for part one. I had so much to ask Irene, so we'll be back for part two in 2 weeks. Next time, we'll be talking less about what's in the glass and more about the culture surrounding it. So there's etiquette, rituals, and traditions surrounding soju that you are not going to want to miss. So make sure to subscribe so you're notified as soon as it drops. If you can't wait 2 weeks, make sure to grab her book, Soju Party, How to Drink and Eat Like a Korean. Find her on Instagram at UYOO eating. And even better, find her in person if you're in New York. You can go visit her at Orion Bar in Brooklyn. I want to know, have you ever had soju before? Are you team flavor or team keeping it pure? Let me know in the comments. And we'll see you back here next time. Bye.